Welcome back. As you may or may not know, I am Eli, the computer guy, and my current project is something called silicondojo.com. Basically, the idea being, what if high-quality technology education was simply as available as running water? Again, we talk about in modern societies that education is the cornerstone to modern societies, and then we charge our 18-year-olds $100,000 to get basket weaving degrees, and we wonder why our society has some problems. So I'm like, hey, what if we charge nothing for actual technical education? Maybe that would make the world a better place. But anyways, we have self-study programs on silicondojo.com. I do Zoom classes. We actually do some in-person classes. We do a lot of different things. And one of the things I also do is one-on-one coaching sessions. Where on Mondays between 1 to 5, I get on to Zoom and I talk with people individually and talk about what their particular issues are. And during that, I get a lot of questions. And so I figured I'd do some of these videos just to give my thoughts on some of the questions I hear a lot of, or questions that I think are important that might be useful for you. So the question I want to talk about today, or the thing that I want to talk about today, is a false equivalency, because this is something I get accused of a lot. And so I just want to discuss it a little bit. I just want to discuss it a little bit, so get you to have an understanding of what false equivalency actually is, and then for you to be thinking about false equivalency when you're hearing arguments from people that are pontificating about things in the technology world, so that you can decide what you believe. Again, one of the big things that I'll tell you, again, whether you're doing a 30-minute consulting thing with me, or whether you're going through the self-study program, or you're watching this video, or you sit down and have a beer with me, is don't trust me. Again, distrust, verify, stay suspicious. Don't trust anybody. And the moment you start trusting somebody, you're probably going down the bad path, right? I argue, don't trust the people. Don't even trust the argument, listen to the argument, and come to your own conclusions. So go out, right? Figure out what it is that you care about in the world. Go talk to people, not even really talk to people, ask questions of people, listen to what their answers are, get multiple different inputs about those particular questions, and then go home, have a coffee or a beer or whatever that it is that you want to consume, and ponder and come up to your own conclusions. Do not believe me. Listen to me if you want to, and then believe your own conclusions. So anyways, this whole false equivalency thing comes up a lot, because basically I have to explain a lot of things in the technology world, and we have a lot of idiotic crap going on in the technology world right now. And in order to try to explain things, I try to come up with stories and metaphors and that type of deal, so that you get a better understanding of how things fit together. It is loud here today. Anyways, and so one of the things I talk about is with blockchain, right? People talk about blockchain is going to revolutionize the world, right? And it's not, right? It's a crappy database system. It's a garbage database system, right? SQLite has probably revolutionized the world. SQLite is the #1 most used database system in the world. And how many of you people even know what SQLite is, right? Again, NoSQL. I talk about this with NoSQL. So NoSQL is a database system type. It's something called a schemaless database system type. It's incredibly amazing, right? So if you have what is called a relational database, it uses something called the ACID principle. If you have a NoSQL database system, it uses something called the BASE principle. Anyways, a whole bunch of stuff. I've got classes on it. Anyways, the thing is when you're using a relational database system, all the transactions have to be perfect, right? If you're ringing up transactions, if you're doing inventory control, any of that kind of thing, everything has to be perfect. The issue with that is it's hard, quote unquote, hard to maintain and manage, hard to scale. There's just a whole bunch of problems with it, right? So what if you had a database system where if you lost some data every once in a while, nobody would care? Right? And so you think about this with social media sites, right? So social media sites, they need to be able to dump your post somewhere. But if you lose a post every once in a while, does anybody really care? And so that's why they have the NoSQL database type systems, right? There's something, this thing called a schema doesn't exist. Basically, you just code, you dump data in, and it figures it out. Massively scalable, incredibly easy to maintain. Well, The system is easy to maintain. The data is a different question, but that's its own story, right? Anyways, and so one of the things I talk about is basically NoSQL led to Twitter. NoSQL led to being able to do things like Facebook. NoSQL led to the modern social media world. NoSQL, as a database type, literally changed the world. Our world today is fundamentally different because NoSQL exists, right? Whereas again, if you look at blockchain, you know, if it disappeared yesterday, what do you even know? What do you even know? Right? If NoSQL disappeared yesterday, a whole bunch of crap would break in the blink of an eye. If blockchain disappeared yesterday, if you did not own any Bitcoin, would you realize that it happened, right? So so I talk about these different types of things and try to explain these stories. And so one of the big things that comes up nowadays is talk about AI, artificial intelligence, which is not. It's not. We have LLMs and these other models. We have so many acronyms. We don't have AI. We do have a lot of acronyms out there. Anyways, there's all these different models out there. And so one of the things I try to explain to people is that LLMs, right, are going to change how we do things, and these different models are going to change how we do things. But fundamentally, they're not a lot different than any of the changes that we've had over the past 30 years of myself being a technology professional. Again, you have to think about it. There was a book by Bill Gates called The Road Ahead. And I want you to understand, so the book by Bill Gates called The Road Ahead, I think it was written in something like 1994. And he skipped the internet. I actually had the original version of The Road Ahead where there were no chapters on the internet because in 1994, Bill Gates didn't think the internet was significant to add to his book about the road ahead for technology, right? So anyways, things change rather quickly. This is the thing I try to teach and explain to the kids. Like, can you imagine, like, Bill Gates literally didn't write anything about the internet in 1994 when he wrote a book talking about the future of technology. Anyways, right? So the thing is, technology changes. It constantly changes. Again, having internet access, infrastructure as a service. You talk about this with things like database systems. Again, especially if you have a relational database system, something like MySQL, right? Back in the day, if you had MySQL, right, and you're going to scale it out, you had to create something called clusters. There were replication strategies. It was a whole Megillah. Now you go to AWS, you buy a service either called Aurora or one of the other services, you type in your credentials, and you're done. And you're done, right? Again, with Exchange Server. So Exchange Server used to be one of the hardest tests you could take in the whole Microsoft library of tests. And now, if you need an email account, you swipe your credit card, you pay Microsoft $10 more a month for Office 365, and you get more email service, right? And that's the thing, is like things have changed significantly. It just hasn't changed that significantly for a lot of folks in the coding world. Right, the people in the coding world, they've essentially had their coding stack for about 15 years at this point, and they've gotten very comfortable not having to worry about it. Right, again, for me, when I got my MCSE, I got my MCSE in 2000 for NT4. Literally, but I passed my MCSE NT4 test. Within a month, I was in the Windows 2000 MCSE boot camp. 1 month in the MC, and that was like one of the first boot camps to run for Windows 2000. The first month, we were already being told about Windows XP. What? Yeah, that's how things work. Anyways, so you have a lot of technology professionals nowadays that have basically been working 15 years on essentially the same stack. And so LLMs, again, not AI, LLMs are coming down the pike, and they're losing their minds, right? And so I talk about these different changes that have happened in the technology world, and this is just a part of being a technology professional. And I talk about the Indians, right? Back in 2000, we were told the world is flat. Remember that? I remember that. Anyways, T1 lines. Can you imagine the power of 1.544 megabits per second anywhere in the world? Anyways, we were told basically the knowledge economy was going to be, there's going to be a diaspora of the knowledge economy. So only the smartest people in the world were going to get hired for the knowledge economy. And then they were going to get paid off of whatever the local payment cost was. And that was going to destroy the knowledge economy in the United States. Again, by 2005, there would be no more American coders, right? The last white boy to learn JavaScript was January 1st, 2005, because past that, it was pointless. Because Indians, or anybody, Indians, Brazilians, Ukrainians, name them all, right? Anyways, they were far cheaper than Americans. They worked harder than Americans. They were more knowledgeable and they were smarter than Americans. We were told all this stuff, right? But by every measure, non-Americans were superior to Americans. Again, that's what we were told. Point fucking blank. Again, let me tell you, as a Gen Xer, like, my entire life has basically about every 5 years, the world coming by to say, hey, did you realize how worthless you are? Oh, you thought you were worthless before? Let me explain to you just how worthless you are. Anyway, so we were told basically, why would you hire somebody and that was an actual example. Why would you hire somebody in Peoria when you can hire somebody in Bangalore? And then the world didn't work out that way. What we found out is the cost for coders, basically that labor cost, isn't the actual real cost for deploying projects. And we reshored a hell of a lot of tech work. Not all of it, but a hell of a lot of it, simply because it actually made more sense financially, right? But anyways, so when I talk about these things, and I talk about AI and how I talk to the young people nowadays to say, basically, will AI take your job? Maybe not actually, but maybe. But is that going to destroy your career? Absolutely not. Again, when I started in the 90s, I was in the Army. I fixed gray, green, and brown boxes. In the 2000s, I did NT, and I did surveillance, and I did voice over IP. Right? I have more high-level certifications that are absolutely worthless than you can shake a stick at. Right? Things change. And so, will the job go away? Again, I had 100 hours in Definity Audix System Administration. Do I believe I will ever get a job dealing with Definity Audix systems again? Believe me, I hope not, right? Anyways, that job may go away, but the career changes. The interesting thing is we come up with this whole thing with false equivalency, right? There are a lot of people out there that have a vested psychological interest in AI disrupting the world, right? So you have people in OpenAI, you have the folks that work for Elon Musk, you have a lot of other people out there that desperately need the next iPhone moment for the tech industry. Right? Basically, the issue is essentially we've plateaued. Again, one of the things I'll have you think about, I just said, we've basically had the same stack for 15 years, right? Hey, when I started my career, for the first 15 years of my career, things were changing really damn quickly. Like if you didn't keep up, you were flushed in the blink of an eye. And then for the past 15 years, you could basically camp out on a single stack and think you were changing the world. One of the things to think, right? And one of my arguments is that we've stagnated, right? We were told we have to care about blockchain, not because blockchain is revolutionary, just because they need us to dump money into something. We were told we need to care about VR, not because anybody actually wanted VR, but because the tech industry needed people to care about VR, right? We're told we need to care about all these things, not because we actually need to care about these things, but because the tech industry really needs to make the money from it. So we have a lot of people that have very vested interests in AI from a financial standpoint, and so they're pushing this crap out there. Again, one of the interesting questions is, what's the difference between AI and an incredibly complicated flowchart? Anyways, that's a question for another time. But you also have another group of people out there that desperately want AI, I think, as a reason for their own failure. Right? Again, it's weird. Like, I have lived a weird generation. My generation has been a very weird time frame. And one of the things with my generation is that almost during my entire generation's lifespan, everybody has kind of expected the world to explode. Not fucking ISIS or any of that kind of crap. No, like the world explode. Like in the 1980s, we had this thing. It's called nuclear winter. right? The idea being, with mutually assured destruction, if both the United States and USSR launch all their nukes, so much crap would be thrown into the air that basically it would put the world into a winter scenario for a decade or more. And so the thought process was it would be better to die from the nukes actually going off than surviving to die in the winter that came afterwards, which is just a hell of a thing. Oh, you're worried about terrorists? Anyways, right? Anyways, then we get to 2000, Y2K, something called the Y2K book. And there was this issue with timestamps. Anyways, and we were told like our entire system might collapse because of the Y2K book. That's a hell of a thing. The modern world will collapse because of a timestamp issue. That's probably how our world is going to collapse. But anyways, right? And then after that, it was the Mayan calendar, 2012. And it was so weird. Everybody talked about 2012. And it's like there's been this drum beat of destruction. Our world is coming to the end. Well, it'll be nuclear winter, or it'll be a timestamp issue, or it'll be a Mayan calendar because somebody had a hand cramp 2,000 years ago. Didn't figure there was any reason to continue going, right? But one of the things I think about, again, like with the AI deal, is there's a lot of people that are desperate for a reason to fail. Again, it's weird with our industry. It's bizarre. It's one of the things that's changed over the years. There's this very fatalistic view. Again, and you get it. Like, you get it from the snarkiness and the meanness, right? This whole thing about the only thing the bosses care about are X, Y, or Z. You're all going to get replaced by H-1B visas. You're all going to get replaced by AI. You have a lot of people that are psychologically vested in this idea that our industry is going to fail. Because I think, in my personal opinion, I think if the entire industry fails, that lets them off the hook. Here's the thing, right? Psychologically, right? Societally, if your industry changes and you decide not to keep up with the changes of your industry, how does that make you look? Aw, computer person doesn't want to learn a new language? Computer person doesn't want to learn a new certification? I mean, that's fine, but nobody wants to hear you cry about it. On the other hand, if you have a technology that comes in that just wipes the board, well, then what can you do? What can you do? How can I fight H-1B visas? How can I fight AI? How can I have agency in the actions that affect my life if everything out there is external? Again, that's one of the things I honestly see from a lot of people. That's just sad. Again, it's kind of like mommy daddy issues. I don't know what the hell to do with it. Again, if you want to lose. Just, stop being proud of it. But here's the deal, right? One of the curious things that comes up when I talk about these LLMs, and I talk about these AI, again, it's not AI, I talk about these LLMs, and I talk about the LLMs simply being a new piece of functionality. When I started in 2000, we had stacks of CDs that we had to read white papers from. And then we had the internet access, and then you get Stack Overflow. Again, the only thing worse than Stack Overflow is not having Stack Overflow. And all these things have changed, and all these things have improved, and all of these things have been tectonic shifts in the technology world. If you do not realize that AWS was a tectonic shift, if you do not realize that Azure was a tectonic shift, if you do not realize that Office 365 was a tectonic shift, if you don't realize Salesforce was a tectonic shift, that means you never supported ACT. You never supported ACT. We've had all these tectonic shifts. And then, as technology professionals, you either gotta decide you're gonna stay in the game or you're gonna leave. But the thing is, when I talk about this, right, people say I'm using false equivalence. Basically, if Indians and the rest of the world didn't take all of our coding jobs, that is not the same thing as AI. Again, going from a world where we didn't have the internet access, or at least the tremendous amount of information we have nowadays, and trying to talk about that compared to these LLMs now, that is not the same thing. Again, talking about these data database types or any of this kind of stuff, right? The idea with the false equivalence is I'm saying, right, we have already seen this historically. Historically, this has changed a lot of things, but at the end of the day, if you want to continue being a technology professional, there will still be jobs. You will still have a career. Will you have the jobs that you thought you were going to have? No. Did I think I was going to be a YouTuber? There was no world that I thought I was going to be a YouTuber, right? Again, I want you to understand this. Even when I started creating education videos in 2009, YouTube was a crap platform. 2009, YouTube, you could only do 15-minute videos. They were only like 480p videos, and it still buffered to high hell. I actually had business class internet going to my house, since I'm a real technology professional, and it buffered to high hell off of YouTube. I literally built my own servers, all right? I had Xeon servers in a co-location facility with something called Flash Media server. Right, that's how what's called Everyman IT started. And then one thing led to another, and now I've got like 1.1 million subscribers on YouTube. That was not the plan. To say that was not the plan, it's kind of like nudge, nudge, wink, wink. That was kind of the plan. No, that was nowhere in the books. That was nowhere in the books. Again, when I became a consultant, I don't want to be a consultant. Again, what you have to understand, right? So I was in the corporate world, right? So I had my military education. I had my MCSE. I had Cisco training. I had 100 hours of telephone system training. Worked in the corporate for one company. Went over to another company, and I decided I was going to be serious. Right? And so I decided before I got to be serious, right, I should go off and backpack through Europe. Right? I was like, you know what? I'm going to go backpack through Europe for 3 months, and then I'm going to come back and I'm going to get on a CIO track. Again, everybody knew me. It was like, you're going to retire in 5 years. Eli, you got the brain for this stuff. You're amazing. So anyways, I was like, okay. So I decided, I flew off to Europe for 3 months. And literally, as I say, it should have been a Hollywood movie, because as my plane was taking off, the .com economy was exploding behind me. Blah, 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 blah. Right? After I got done backpacking through Europe, and then I backpacked through India, because I was like, okay, well, we got a little recession going on. I'll wait a little while. Anyways, backpacked through India, wound up in Seattle. And when I was in Seattle, literally I sat there, and this woman was asking me about my resume, right? Because I had telephone, I got all that stuff, right? She's like, explain this. So I explained it. She looked at me and said, last year, I was placing people like you for like $80 an hour. Salary, not contract, salary. I was like, okay. And she was like, yeah, I have nothing for you. When I was in Seattle, I ended up getting laid off, not fired, laid off of a pizza delivery job. Do you want to know when you get really depressed? Oh, you think you're depressed? Imagine military experience. Imagine a 4-year college degree. Imagine an MCSE and the rest of this. And you're getting laid off from a pizza delivery job. Oh, bad times. Anyways, what happened? Wound up going back to Baltimore. I'd run into this guy, Adolfo. Told me to put up some signs or whatever. I put up whole-time signs. And all of a sudden, I was fixing people's computers, and things were going better than ever. And that went great until the Great Recession happened. And then they started doing videos. Wound up doing that for YouTube. And that went great until YouTube lost its mind. And now I'm doing Silicon Dojo. And I don't know. We'll find out how this is going. 2 years from now, ask me how this is going. I don't know how it's going. We got over 700 members now. That's something. That is a vanity metric. We have over 700 members on silicondojo.com. What does that mean practically? I have no idea. But it's a very nice vanity metric. Right? But that's a thing, right? Our industry changes. And so when I try to explain these things, try to explain one to the other. And so when people say it's false equivalency, what they're trying to say is that this does not match with this. That somehow something like AI is an entirely different world. When I talk about NoSQL revolutionizing the world and SQLite being the #1 used database engine in the world, and I compare that to the abject failure of blockchain, that's a false equivalent. Blockchain is something else. And so that's what we talk about when we're talking about false equivalence. That the story that I'm telling about one thing does not equate to basically the situation that I'm trying to give my opinion about. Right? And so this is going to be something that you have to consider when you're going for advice, when you're going for mentorship, because that's the issue we all run into, right? It's very hard to tell a story that's completely just brass tacks. Here are the TCP ports. Let me make this interesting. Right? We tell these stories. We tell these stories about our life histories. We tell our stories about our lived experience. And so the question then is, do those things actually match in the way that I am stating that they match up? And that is something that you are going to have to decide when you're listening to folks. Does this actually make sense? Again, like there's this whole thing with AIs are an existential risk to the world, right? AI is more dangerous than nukes. Now I'm going to tell you how stupid I am as a computer guy. My question is, why do our nukes have an API to begin with? Hey, I'm not actually a cybersecurity expert. Maybe our nukes shouldn't have an API so that neither AI nor ISIS terrorists nor anybody else can just launch our damn nukes. Anyways, that's things that I think about. So go out there, again, listen to people, and there's a difference between hearing and listening. Again, when I want you folks to go out there, I don't really want you to talk. I've said this before. I don't talk. Ask specific questions to try to figure out viewpoints about specific problems. And then listen, right? What is hearing? What is hearing? Hearing is simply being in the presence when somebody flaps their gums and it goes into your ear, right? If you don't have an AirPod in your ear and people are talking around you, you are hearing. It doesn't mean you're digesting that information. It doesn't mean you're understanding that information. It doesn't mean you're picking that information apart to better grasp how things work. That just means you're in the presence of audio waves. Right? What listening is when you sit there and you give the person your full attention. You don't pay attention to the story of the person, right? Whether they're CEO or beggar. It's not like, oh my God, Eli, a CEO told me. I don't give a crap what a CEO told you. I give a crap about the argument. Right? When that person that's across from you starts answering, listen to what they're actually saying. And then ask questions based off of what they actually say. Again, if somebody says AI is more dangerous than nuclear weapons, like, I didn't realize nuclear weapons had APIs. Maybe that's the bigger issue. Don't say that. They'll get mad at you. They'll get mad at you. Anyway, but okay. So why is an API more dangerous than a nuclear weapon? Yeah, we already got all kinds of gases and poisons and all kinds of crap out there. Anyways, so there you go. There are some things to think about and to ponder, and go out and listen. Don't even talk to people. Ask people open-ended questions that are specific to information you want to better understand, and then just listen. And when they say things, process what they're saying so that you can ask them follow-on questions to better understand what their arguments are. And that's the thing. Oh, shit. Look at that. That's a fluffy alligator. You You gotta be careful about those fluffy alligators. Jesus Christ. What was I saying? This is how you. This is the real Eli the computer guy. This is the real world. You don't know what's gonna happen. Sometimes I say something snarky. Sometimes I get attacked by a fluffy alligator. You just don't know. But anyways, and then you listen. And that's the thing, because what I notice with young people nowadays is they get so tied up on, again, these words. Again, hypocrisy, or again, And the question is even if somebody is a hypocrite, does that devalue the argument? Right? If I'm fat as shit, right? If I'm 300 pounds and I'm down in the Mountain Dew and I'm shoving the Doritos in my face and I look at you and I say, you should eat better and exercise more. I mean, is that kind of funny? Yeah, it's kind of weird. But does that devalue the advice? Right? Again, with false equivalency, if somebody tells the stories and they don't quite match up even quite properly, does the overall argument make sense? And it doesn't have to be all or nothing. You don't have to 100% agree with somebody or 100% disagree with somebody. You can 90% disagree with them, right? You know what? There's a lot of what was said that I actually understand those arguments, and I align with the viewpoints of those particular arguments. But there's about 20% there maybe I don't fully understand, or maybe I disagree with, and move on. So anyways, that's all I gotta say. Gotta look around for those fluffy alligators. You know Florida. Florida. Somebody just trotting along, talking in their camera, having a good old day, and then a fluffy alligator comes out of nowhere. Anyways, there are some things to think about and some things to ponder. See y'all later.